A blessed afternoon to all CEAP member schools all over the Philippines and to all those who are with us all over the world. Welcome to day 4 of the 2021 CEAP Congress. I am Sister Felicitas Bernardo, currently the Dean of the Graduate School in Education, the Senior High School Principal at St. Paul University, Manila, the CEAP Trustee at Large, and the Chairperson of the CEAP National Basic Education Commission. I will be your moderator for today. As we start our session for today, let me invite you to an opening prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Lord, we thank you for another wonderful day you have given to us, and for all the blessings you have showered into our lives. We thank you, Lord, that you have given us this opportunity to come together as one CEAP community to celebrate our lives as educators and also to renew ourselves as we remember the vocation and mission that you have called us to. Be with our speakers as we share their time and knowledge with us on building a culture of quality in our schools. Grant them the wisdom of the Holy Spirit, and may your words of consolation, hope, and encouragement be shared through them. We continue to keep in mind our fellow brothers and sisters who are struggling through this pandemic. Grant us the grace to have deep compassion for those who are most in need and to respond generously to their needs. For our frontliners, protect them and keep them safe through this pandemic. All this we ask in Jesus' name, amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Good afternoon once again. For those who have just tuned in with us, we welcome you to the third learning session for day 4 of the 2021 CEAP Congress. This learning session, organized by the National Basic Education Commission, is entitled Raising the Learning Level of Students. We have 2 parts in this session. 1, the instructional leader's role in literacy building, and 2, the core principles of online distance learning: interaction, feedback, authenticity, and integrity. We are live both on CEAP Facebook page and on CEAP channel on the YouTube. Feel free to continue sharing this to your fellow teachers and administrators so that they can join in and listen. Let me just give you some reminders. Fellow educators, we welcome your vibrancy to the Congress, and we thank you for your heart react and also reactions and caring comments. We also invite you to share our page to your friends and colleagues. Please be assured that we will ensure that we hand you your e-certificate at the end of the Congress. However, the following conditions should be considered. 1, please attend 1 learning session in day 3 and 1 learning session in day 4. After attending a learning session, kindly fill out the evaluation form. The link is already provided in the caption and in comment section, and it will go live only after the session and shall remain open until 7 p.m. tonight. You may also evaluate the sessions from the virtual Congress Hall at the program tab of the virtual hall. You can click the button that says evaluate this session. You need to fill out the general evaluation on day 5 to get the e-certificate of the whole Congress. Also, we encourage you to explore our virtual Congress site and visit our educators exhibit and interact with our partners in education. And you may just win the raffle. You may also offer your petitions inside the prayer room. Just click on the link inside the prayer room and may type in your intentions. Our CEAP Christian Formation team, our prayer warriors, will be praying for your intentions. As in all our previous webinars, the registration to the Congress is also free. But if you wish to make donation to help defray our expenses in staging this Congress, or to the Kapatirang Kamagong Fund to help our small mission schools, you may deposit them in the bank account flashed on the screen. You may also send us some stars. We also thank the schools who donated as they registered in this Congress. Thank you very much for your generosity. And so without much ado, let's go introduce our speakers. Our first resource person will talk about instructional leaders' role in literacy building is Dr. Dina Joanna S. Ocampo. She is a professor at the University of the Philippines College of Education, where she teaches courses on literacy development and research. Her work has influenced public policy on education and the professional development of teachers. From 2013 to 2017, she served as the Undersecretary for Curriculum and Instruction at the Department of Education. She collaborates with academics, government agencies, and non-governmental organizations that advocate the literacy and books, such as the Reading Association of the Philippines, the Philippine Dyslexia Foundation, the Philippine Board on Books for Young People, UNESCO, and the Global Reading Networks. So, my fellow educators, let us welcome Dr. Ocampo.
Hello to everyone. My name is Dina Ocampo from the UP College of Education. Thank you very much to CEAP for the invitation to be here during your conference and to interact with you. My topic for this afternoon is instructional leadership for building literacy, the significant role of instructional leaders. This is a very timely topic, and I think we should be discussing this seriously so we can help our learners develop literacy skills that they will have with them for the rest of their lives. Our outline for this morning for this talk rather is as follows. Current concerns and phases of recovery, the hope which research brings, the imperative of learner-centered education recovery, revising and revisiting literacy concepts, leadership for literacy, and of course, a brief summary. This provides a bit of context to our discussion today. 2 years ago, our classrooms looked like this in the public sector. All of a sudden, in March 2020, this is what our classrooms looked like. Learning became homebound or in small clusters. And these are the many variations or variants of the scenarios. Soon, hopefully, we will be preparing for blended learning and in some places, hopefully, face-to-face instruction. The challenges that have been brought about by the pandemic are valid, important, and daunting. However, we must not lose sight of the challenges that we had before the pandemic. And these challenges together may seem to be overwhelming, but perhaps this is an opportunity for us to rethink and recalibrate our responses to the problems and issues that arise as we deliver education every single day. Let me just run through some of the most pressing concerns. First, learning recovery is an important aspect to keep our eye on. We need to make sure that we help children recover their learning selves, to be able to interact with others, to be able to learn again from face-to-face instruction. And this has to be done a little bit slowly. We also need to be able to redesign our schools and education programs on the basis of new learning paradigms. The new learning paradigms that were thrust upon us are important to remember because, we have had to make adjustments with our teaching and learning processes. And so we cannot expect children or all learners to just shift to what it was before. I think that the emergence of new learning paradigms is a very important tension that we have to pay attention to. We also need to regain our social spaces and help children detach from 24/7 social media use. We use social media for teaching. Now we need to be able to bring our teaching back into spaces that will allow for both digital as well as physical interactions among children and teachers. The feeling of connectedness, which technology gave to us during this pandemic, should be maintained. However, we should also put as much premium on group work and face-to-face work among children. I think that this is one of the key aspects of helping them navigate mental health issues that have come up, but at the same time, show them that they're not alone in this challenge and they're not alone in these feelings that they have. And being able to help them in the road towards learning recovery is one of the most important gifts and lessons we can give our children in the next few years. While we are doing that, we also need to address pre-existing lingering inequalities. The pandemic magnified these inequalities even more. And so it's important for us to remember that our role is to improve learning outcomes. And that what we need to be able to do is to put all interventions together so that we can help in the recovery of learners at the same time pushing forward their skills and their knowledge in the various learning areas and in larger 21st century thinking capacities and competencies that we should be helping them obtain. What is important, I think, is for us to remember that there are phases of recovery. And in the middle of all these recovery steps, we should put the learner in that equation. So whilst we are responding or we have been trying to recover and reconstruct because of the challenge or the what the world experienced through the pandemic, I think it is also time for us to think about transitioning into business as usual or a new normal and build resilience. We need to accept that there will be times when we will again go into lockdown or again go into quarantine. But this should be more managed as there are more vaccines that come and that people are learning to deal with the health issues. I think that hope is very important, and the hope we must draw from the research. One of these bits of research that I would like to share with you emphasizes that systems at all performance levels can improve outcomes substantially in as short or as little as 6 years. In a study conducted by Morshid et al. In 2010, they showed that countries that started from poor performance were able to achieve fair performance on PISA examinations in a span of 6 years. They could also show that in terms of those who started from fair performance levels, moving on to good performance levels, and those from good performance levels going on to great, and so on and so forth. I think that these are very important and hopeful research findings that we should be able to base our actions upon. So what does it mean when we say move from one performance level to another? 6 key interventions were found to improve teaching and learning. These are the following. We can improve teaching and learning by revising the curriculum and standards. We have done this in 2010, and as we speak, this is being revised and improved by the Department of Education. And hopefully they will release it soon in time for our transition to blended and face-to-face instruction again. Another important intervention to improve school systems and schools is to review the reward and remuneration structure of teachers and all education personnel. These are important because the roles that we are doing now have changed. And so we need to be able to feel that the extra effort that we are doing, as well as the new tasks that are being asked of us, are recognized, and that these have equivalent reward structures. Third, schools or leaders need to build technical skills of teachers and principals, often through group or cascade training. So we need to beef up what we need to learn and what are skills so that we can become competent in teaching in the new learning paradigms. Fourth, we have to revise the way we assess student learning. I'm sorry. Fifth, we need to utilize student data to guide education delivery. And this is one of the most important aspects that we have to look at now, because we need to get to grips about what learners need. We don't need to wait for a whole school year to pass again before understanding what students are going through and what learning support they need in the next few years. And finally, we need to be able to establish policies that will allow these changes to thrive and succeed. The second aspect of improving school systems, is that learners must integrate three dimensions when charting the improvement journey. The first dimension is to assess the current performance level in the school. And this has to do with measuring student outcomes, because that is the most important improvement that we must achieve. So if it were literacy, we need to look at how children are able to read, write, and make sense of all of these, because what those skills are relevant to all subsequent learnings that must happen. The second intervention or integration of or dimension is to select the interventions that will be used. You see, the school systems must select interventions that it can succeed in before moving on to harder or more challenging interventions. Therefore, the intervention must match the performance level of the school. And third, we must remember to always adapt interventions, assessments, and changes to our history, to our culture, our politics, our school structure, and resources. We cannot just keep on borrowing interventions from different places without contextualizing them to our various schools. So how did they find countries or school systems to move from one level to the next? How to get from X to Y? They found several key variables. Number one, a school system can improve from any starting point, but there has to be an admission of that starting point and what that starting point actually describes. What is the status quo? Have we lost many children? Have they dropped out? Do we need once again to strengthen children finding or learning finding interventions now? We need good data because we need to admit what our school system has suffered because of the challenges that we faced in the last few years. Third, we need to identify the interventions that are necessary to make desired improvements in learner outcomes. What do the children need now? We cannot go back to that old curriculum or that old way of teaching and assume that what they learned in grade 1 or the grade 1 learners 5 years ago, they're the same grade 1 learners in this school year. We cannot make those assumptions anymore. So we need to be able to identify what interventions are needed. Fourth, we need to sustain interventions in school systems for at least 6 years with constant progress monitoring. In other words, if we are going to try out a literacy program, we should monitor it all the time. And if it's working and the tweaking is done in process, we should stick to this program so that we give the children a chance to succeed. We should contextualize interventions to history, culture, politics, and school culture. There should also be a continuity in good leadership. And this is key because a good leader will continue programs. And finally, the learner is always at the center of the reform. Putting the learner in the center of the reform does not mean putting the burden on the learner. The learner is the recipient of the changes we make in our school. And that learner receives the benefits of these improvements. So let's make that very clear. We put the learner in the center of our reforms because we want that learner to be the beneficiary. So therefore, it is imperative that we understand learner-centered education recovery. In terms of literacy, this is already a very urgent matter. And so let us try and discuss the concerns on Filipino children's literacy performance. Historically, we've already known that there are challenges in the literacy learning of children. And therefore, interventions have been made, for example, to start with the languages children know best, so that they learn to read in languages that they understand. See, by using the language of the child that is strongest for literacy learning, we help this child bring all the prior knowledge, all the vocabulary into the literacy equation, into the literacy situation. If we use a foreign language immediately or an unknown language immediately, we double the trouble for children. Instead of just learning how to read, they have to learn both a new language and how to read. So we must be forthright and honest. What really is the language that children speak in our schools? And if there are different languages, then we must make adjustments so these different languages are equally important in classrooms. It's the child's language or the learner's language that we must leverage so that we increase literacy performance. So this is a historical finding. And recently, these historical findings were spotted or picked up by international large-scale assessments, showing that we were having trouble with poor literacy performance. It's also very important for us to recognize that in integrative items that are not so much learner area based, our students struggled with those kinds of questions. So this means that maybe in our schools, we are too learner-centered or subject-oriented. Perhaps we should have more integrative lessons and have more activities that allow children to apply what they know in real-world scenarios. So let's talk about literacy again for a short while. Let's go back to the simple view of reading, which in Goff and Tanmer's definition focuses on three key elements. Reading comprehension is the product of decoding and listening comprehension. This means that if a child is able to decode and is able to decode in a language he or she understands, then that process should result in reading comprehension. If one or the other of these two are low, then the resulting reading comprehension will also be low. However, it's important to remember as well that when we talk about language comprehension or listening comprehension, there are many corresponding or many sub-skills involved. So in language comprehension, there are literal comprehension skills, there are inferential language skills, narrative language skills, oral language, academic vocabulary, and the very important background knowledge which language represents among us. And these are all aspects that we need to develop to strengthen language comprehension among learners. The same with decoding. There are many sub-skills or sub-components that are prerequisites to decoding. For example, phonological awareness, word recognition, word knowledge, fluency, print concepts. All of these contribute to how well a child is able to decode. And therefore, by strengthening language comprehension and decoding, we actually increase the chances of a child's ability to comprehend what he or she reads. The target is the learner's improved reading comprehension through good literacy instruction. In this paradigm developed by Catherine Snow and the RAND group, it is seen here that the socio-cultural context of learning is recognized, and therefore the social interactions are needed. We've tried to use social interactions through our digital interactions. And this, it is important to remember, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is important to remember that we must have good text materials, corresponding activities that make sense of the text, which the reader is able to access, able to appreciate, so that we can develop reading comprehension. Another important reason to do this is that as children get older or as learners progress in age, the demand for literacies becomes greater. Not beyond reading, writing, spelling, speaking, listening, and of course, literal comprehension, there has to be creativity, technology use, so that they can use these literacies for learning other things. And this brings us to multi-literacies. Presently, the most important literacies that we must learn are health literacy, scientific literacy, and in the present context of elections, fake news, the revisionism of history, we need to be able to look at cultural literacy, media literacy, and we need to be able to work on information literacy as well. These are important aspects of our lives, and we all have developed literacies for them. So the word literacy is far more encompassing than reading and writing. It is a 21st century skill that children must learn. How then should we develop leadership for literacy? What are the features of good leadership? First, strong school leadership is important. Many research have been conducted about instructional leadership and strong school leadership. First, instructional and school leadership has significant effects on student learning. A good principal can actually push learning outcomes higher. Second, we must recognize that whilst we have a leader, a principal, there are also other leaders in a school's environment. There are leaders for academics, leaders for grade levels, leaders for subject matter, but there are also leaders among clusters of teachers, leaders in the library, leaders in resource rooms or remedial sessions. And so all of these are formal and informal leaders whom we must develop. In the studies on instructional leadership, team-based structure actually works. Third, there is a core set of leadership practices that successful school leaders do, and we'll get to that later. Fourth, school leaders respond productively to challenges and opportunities, and successful school leaders create strong communities in school. In 2010, Gina Cerquinia and I wrote a paper based on her dissertation. In her paper, she investigated high poverty and high-performing schools in the public school systems in the Philippines. After she made a huge survey, she distilled her information and found that there were 5 key elements of that promoted effective literacy programs in Philippine schools. First, again, is strong school leadership. Second is teacher quality and the competence of literacy teachers. Third, there is a clearly well-articulated literacy program or reading interventions that are in place. And when it's said that it is well-articulated, it means that everybody in the school knows what that program is. Fourth, there is strong parental or family and community support. And fifth, resources are well allocated. And these 5 elements or these 5 attributes help push successful literacy programs in the direst of circumstances, in the poorest of schools. So what are the actions that effective instructional leaders take? I think that we should always keep in mind that it is para sa bata, it is for learners at all times. What are the core practices? The first set of core practices can be categorized as instructional leaders set directions. First, they identify and articulate a vision and mission. Second, they create shared meanings. In other words, people in the school understand what it means when they say reading comprehension, when they say home reading books, when they say modules for spelling, when they say intervention, remedial reading for decoding, remedial reading for inferencing. They have shared meanings. They also have created high performance expectations of each other and of their learners. In other words, they don't just expect children to perform well. They expect their school to perform well. Fourth, the school leader fosters the acceptance of group goals. In other words, goals are set together. Fifth, there is monitoring of organizational performance because the performance of the organization is important in promoting the performance of learners. And sixth, communication. Good school leaders or strong school leaders actually communicate all the time with the members or the various communities within the school. Let's just show you an example of identifying and articulating a vision. We found that school-level challenges are oftentimes solved with school-based solutions in partnership with direct stakeholders in the school. For example, if a school has a shared school improvement plan that's actually developed by the school members, not just by a principal and one teacher, but rather everyone had a voice in creating that. And when such a thing is created, a collaborative plan is created, then that means that everyone has input in decision making. At the same time, that means everyone has shared accountability for the success of these plans. And that means success in resource generation and use. Again, it's important to be able to emphasize that working in teams to improve as a school is very important. Recently, a group of us did a study on vision missions of schools in the Philippines. We had a sample of over 200 private schools. We were able to categorize the themes mentioned in vision mission statements of Philippine schools, private schools. No? For example, civic development was the first or the top priority, most frequently mentioned in vision mission statements. then social-emotional development, learning environment, integrating into a spiritual community. The fifth was academic development, which was very curious because it was mentioned only fifth in rank, and then vocational preparation, and sadly, physical development was the least frequently mentioned. Now, within each category or within each theme, there were frequently or most frequently mentioned sub-themes and least frequently mentioned sub-themes. And what we find here is that in civic development, the most frequently mentioned sub-theme was to love and serve the country. But the least frequently developed was global awareness. Now, if we are gearing ourselves towards participating in the world in terms of producing workers or producing professionals, producing content for the world, then maybe we should think about adding a little bit more on global awareness, which is a key 21st century skill. Let me jump towards academic development. Very high is skills development, but very low was developing a joy for learning. We all know that when children are happy, when learners are motivated, they learn better. So perhaps we should think about this and review our vision mission statements. Strong school leaders have a clear vision. And if that vision is clear, then that now converts to programs and converts to activities in schools. The second set of core practices of strong leaders is that they develop people. And that strong leader actually becomes a good model for desired behaviors, dispositions, actions, and values. But also, this school leader gets more people to become models. This person is not egocentric. Rather than telling everybody, be like me, I am the model, this person actually encourages many models to arise from within the school. Second, a second action is that good leaders offer intellectual stimulation for their teachers, and research and training are very important for that. And finally, teachers struggle too. And so individualized support for teachers are important through mentoring and coaching. Core practices number 3, developing the organization. They found that there are 5 key actions for this. First, helping the school become a professional learning community to support the performance of all key workers, including teachers and students. Second, strengthening the school culture through collaboration. Third, modifying the organizational structure as needed. Fourth, managing the environment. This has been very challenging for schools because from a physical learning environment, they had to go and transition to a remote learning environment that was mediated by modules, television, radio, and of course, the internet. And fifth, good, strong leaders monitor everything from goals to purposes to programs to teachers and students, and they monitor themselves. In promoting high-quality teaching and in providing clear indicators and measures, strong leaders support teachers. In the Philippines, through one of the policies of the Department of Education, it is strongly encouraged that we have learning action cells in our schools. And these learning action cells are actually professional learning communities. What happens here is that the community of practice where teachers plan together, solve problems together, and think of action implementation scenarios or methods, this actually leads to improved teachers' content knowledge, pedagogical skills, assessment strategies, and professional ethics. This relationship in creating professional learning circles or learning action cells and that impact on teachers' quality, this is well supported by lots of research all over the world. Further, it is also evidenced by many research that when teachers improve these skills, learner outcomes are also improved and learners' development are also more holistic. So it's very important for the school leader to foster these communities of practice, these professional learning circles or cells, so that teaching and learning will improve. Of course, it goes without saying that it's supporting a literacy program, we're going to have to think about libraries and reading areas. So wherever that is, whether in a school library, in a classroom, in the home of a child, in a river, or on a digital device, there has to be materials to read. Why? Because we learn to read so we can read. And without reading materials, our reading skills will not develop because practice makes perfect. The more you read, the better you become at reading. The more you write, the better you become at writing and expressing and composing. And these are very important activities. If we do not spend time doing these activities and engaging with texts, then our readers will not be able to develop reading comprehension and the various multiliteracies that come after that. So, what are concrete steps that strong school leaders can do to support literacy development in learners and to support strong and effective reading programs? First, start with a school-wide action plan. Under this action plan for literacy, we develop that plan together with teachers, parents, stakeholders, and learners. This is what I was saying earlier about creating meanings that are shared by all. We develop a mental model together, and our definitions are the same. Our goals are the same. Second, we strengthen literacy development in all classes, not just the language classes such as the mother tongue, Filipino, or English. We strengthen literacy development in all by making sure that those who teach mathematics, science, araling panlipunan, they teach the literacy skills needed to learn math, to learn science, to learn social studies. Third, we create and implement interventions for struggling students, and we create them as they are needed. So these programs, which are needed by learners, must be created immediately. This is why in our assessment policies, we say that within 5 weeks, we identify the students who are already struggling and immediately they are provided additional instruction. Fourth, monitor all literacy programs implemented. The next step is to review and revise policies and the administrative culture. The strong school leader or instructional leader puts together all the pieces. That's the job of the leader and administrator. You need to make sure that all the pieces are working. The calendar is synchronized. You know when there's a remedial class somewhere. You know where those classes are being held. You know when books are going to be delivered, or when children are coming to school to pick up modules or return modules. We put all the pieces together because we want to monitor that they are actually happening. And when they are happening, they're actually using time wisely. Second, discuss roadblocks and develop policies to enable the implementation of the literacy action plan. We cannot have a plan that cannot be implemented. The plan has to be feasible and implementable by teachers, by parents, and learned by learners, right? By students. So it's important to do a time and motion kind of simulation. Figure out what the roadblocks will be and find ways to go around those roadblocks or to get them out of the way. Because it's important for us to be able to make our action plan happen. Third, generate and nurture leadership in various levels. A strong leader is not an insecure leader. So building leadership everywhere where there is an opportunity is what a strong leader does. So that everywhere there is somebody who can actually voice an opinion and create options to solve problems. There's no need for problems to become big when they are solved, when they happen. Fourth, we must always offer instructional support for teachers through coaches and mentors. As said earlier, we need to create communication groups and we need to be transparent through communication. So this is the second set of very clear steps that instructional leaders can do. The reason that these are important steps is that we want literacy to be equitable. If children are struggling with learning to read, then we must put in place equity and inclusion strategies and programs so that they will acquire literacy. So we don't force them to learn in a way that their mind doesn't work, right? So we need to find ways so everybody can attain literacy. If that is the belief that everyone can be literate, then we just adjust the programs so that people can become literate, young or old, with intellectual challenges or none, with socio-emotional difficulties or none. What our goal is for our students to be able to use their literacy for their life, for learning more things, for engaging with the world and the community, and of course, for making decisions about their life in the future, for their own agency. And with the chiming of that bell, I would just like to say that literacy and equity will lead to literacy for all. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share. I hope that it has been meaningful for you as it was very meaningful for me to prepare. Thank you and have a great conference. Bye.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dina Ocampo, for that mind and heart opener. Truly, you are the relevant figure, synonymous to literacy and learner development in the landscape of education. Thank you very much. Our resource person, second resource person, who will share with us about core principles of online distance learning, interaction, feedback, authenticity, and integrity, is Mr. Francis GMB Toscano. He is currently the chairperson of the Grade School Christian Life Education Department, or the Religious Education, of Savior School Incorporated. Jim was recently included in the 30 under 30 global list of literacy leaders and change makers in the US-based organization International Literacy Association in 2019. And in 2017, he was recognized as one of the 50 best teachers of the world and finalist to the Global Teacher Prize, the first Filipino teacher to represent the Philippines. Jim was also cited as the best K-12 teacher at the EdTech Advocate Awards in the United States of America. He is an Apple Professional Learning Specialist and currently sits as member of the Asia Pacific Board of the Apple Distinguished Educators. My fellow educators, we now listen to our second speaker, Mr. Jim Toscano.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. This is Francis Jimby Toscano, your speaker for this session, and I am honored and thankful to be here with you. Of course, I want to thank CEAP for inviting me to be a speaker and to be part of this amazing learning experience called CEAP Congress 2021. So let me just start my screen and we will proceed to our talk. All right. So this talk is dedicated to the discussion of the core principles of online distance learning, or ODL: interaction, feedback, authenticity, and integrity. Of course, this is Francis Jimby Toscano. I am the Grade School EdTech Coordinator and Grade School CLE, or Christian Life Education Department Chair at Savior School San Juan. So, just a bit of background. Savior School, where I am teaching, where I am part of, has been in online distance learning for almost 2 years now, like the rest of us. So when we speak of ODL, ODL has been one of the key modes of or modality of distance or remote learning that has been happening, especially because we have been almost 2 years of doing education in the pandemic. It's been almost 2 years of teaching and learning in the pandemic. Schools are not anymore in lockdown, are not just anymore in lockdown, ensuring that learning continues in whatever modality that fits the context of the school community, most especially of the students. We are not just anymore in lockdown. We are in quarantine, different kinds of quarantines or alert levels. And of course, because of this, face-to-face still not being allowed, despite the pilot test of face-to-face classes that will be coming in the coming months. We still know that these are in the pilot stages, which means that it's very limited. So I think it's important to discuss what we have seen, what we have learned in terms of education in the pandemic. Just a note, because of our discussion, the Philippines and Myanmar has been in remote learning for more than 200 days last year. So last year, when we started our first education in the pandemic, first year, we have been in lockdown or doing virtual or remote learning for more than 200 days, while the rest of the region, except for Singapore, had students missing face-to-face learning for more than 100 days. That's according to the study of Asian Development Bank 2021. Calendar differences aside, it's very important to note that even right now, schools in Southeast Asia have started to go back to face-to-face learning, except for the Philippines, which we are seeing on the coming months for the pilot test. Online distance learning has become the go-to distance learning modality for those who have internet connection or access Because of this, it propelled growth in edtech or education technology. Before the pandemic, by the way, education was once highly reluctant of technology tools. This is according to a World Economic Forum report, which says that the field of education, which was highly and traditionally reluctant to the use of technology, finally opens its door for education technology to bring in solutions that can help ease the dreadful effect of school lockdown. Especially because we don't have much options right now. If the community has access to internet, then online distance learning or online learning is the go-to modality of remote or distance education. But take note that because of this, um, schools or education in general, which has been highly reluctant of technology tools, have opened itself to the use of different platforms. What does it mean? Well, if we look at the perspective of the business sector or the edtech sector, an OECD study reported that the global expenditure on education technology has been projected or had been projected to grow from 163 billion US dollars in 2019 to about 404 billion US dollars in 2025. What does it tell us? Because of the remote learning setup that a lot of schools have gotten into because of the pandemic, there was a surge in the use of online platforms in ODL, um, such as Zoom, Google Classroom, Schoology, MS Teams, Meet, whatever things that you're using. They had become household names. Because of this, numerous education technology, edtech or edtech startup or companies have been investing. Why? Because this is a new space. This is a new space for them to grow. And because schools have opened themselves to using technology in education, such online learning solutions, which actually help us benefit from making sure that education continues, also benefits this edtech companies. If you have noticed, the moment that we had the lockdown, a lot of edtech companies actually made their products free to help alleviate the negative effects or to help us transition to remote or online distance learning. However, if you've noticed also, a lot of these companies have actually started putting in or bringing in premium features or features that could be accessed if there is a premium access to this platform. Right. So if you've noticed also, a lot of these platforms have can be accessed for free. But if we want to have more advanced features, then we might need to shell out, which also pushes schools to rethink their budgets, to rethink how they would allocate the needs that they have, especially because a lot of schools thought that online distance learning will only be happening for a few weeks or a few months. Little did we know that it's already going on for almost 2 years. Hence, a lot of the allocation, while there are no face-to-face classes right now, a lot of the budget allocations are going to expenditures in edtech platforms. Because of this, online distance learning, while it helps the edtech business sector to thrive, it also helped the school communities to learn more about what it means to teach online or to teach and study with technology. So what are the things that I want to share to you right now about online distance learning? The first lesson that we have learned is that no, shifting to online distance learning is not as same as migrating structures to online setting. What does it mean? It did not mean turning class discussions to online discussions, or simply turning instructional materials into their digital counterparts. Online distance learning has its own unique pedagogical approaches and will need a new design, especially because we are in a virtual learning environment, which means that we need to put up structures that fit or that are appropriate to studying online or in a virtual learning environment. Most importantly, I think one of the core reasons why online distance learning is not a simple migration or not even close to the normal online distance learning that we have been having. Like, for example, I had been having in UP Open University, it's because this is happening in the context or the situation of the pandemic, which puts a lot of constraints to a lot of work that needs to be done. So that's one core reasons why online distance learning right now, shifting to it when we shifted is not a simple process, especially when we think of factors such as safety, security, and of course, because we are, dealing with a very horrific, very dangerous pandemic. Another lesson that we need to consider from this from all of this online distance learning thing that have been happening is that teaching quality is more important than how lessons are delivered. There has been a study by the Education Endowment Fund. It's an organization based in London, and they say one of the things that I've found out is that regardless of the modes or means of delivering education, as long as the elements of effective teaching such as clear explanations, scaffolding, and feedback, as long as they are constantly present and implemented in that learning process itself or teaching process, it enables teaching to be better. And when teaching quality is better, then it means that students can learn better. So regardless of the modality, whether it's online, print-based or whatever, or a mix of those things, as long as this instructional or maybe educations or element of effective teaching, as long as they're consistently present and implemented, then there should be no problem at all. Another thing, one of the big things that we have learned about online distance learning is that, in every decision and every design that we make in terms of learning experiences in online distance learning, the starting point should always be the context of the students. Our students right now are learning remotely or at a distance. And even before the pandemic, it's always good, it's always the best thing to start with, to look at the context of the students. We always talk about instruction, differentiated instruction, individual instruction, personalized learning. That has been there for a very long time. But one of the things that reminded us or help us to make sure that remote learning or online distance learning is always effective is that we don't forget the context of the students, especially when we're teaching a lot of students right now and they are far from our home. So that means a lot of context to consider. Context here does not really say that does not only mean their houses or maybe their backgrounds. It also includes about what are their abilities, what are their instructional needs, because that's one thing that we need to combat right now. We have been preparing modules, printed modules, digital modules that looks like as if it's a one size fits all. It's a one solution to everything. The biggest challenge for educators right now is to how to make those common, regular, maybe the word, I don't know, those standard modules fit into the different contexts of our students. So context is always very, very important to consider. And of course, the last one, I think, which is very, very important that we need to consider is that online educational setting requires a deeper collaboration and greater cooperation between the home and the school. This is very, very important because the home is now the heart of learning itself. And the parents or the adult supervisors at home are actually our partners in education. Stronger more than ever is the need for better collaboration and greater cooperation. We need to work hand in hand. So these are the big three lessons that we have learned about ODL in the pandemic, but it's also important to go deeper. So we talk about, in the first lesson, we talk about teaching quality. The second lesson, we talk about the importance of the importance of the importance of cooperation, and of course, the last one, the importance of context. So you have teaching quality, student context, and at the same time, greater home and school collaboration. Now, let's go deeper into our next well, the main part of our discussion for today. So aside from these things, let's go specific to the ODL core principles. Now that we have established all the three big lessons, how do they figure out into the core principles of ODL? So let me just share to you what we have learned about the core principles of online distance learning. The first one is about interaction. So what have we learned about our own experience and also from research about interaction in online distance learning? The first one really is that the teaching presence of the teacher or teaching presence can be extended in online platforms and learning resources despite teacher absence. Well-designed, engaging learning experiences can happen without the teacher. So let's break this into smaller details. Number one, what do we mean by teaching presence? Teaching presence does not really mean the teacher itself. Teaching presence actually refers to the functions, to the things that a teacher does to ensure that teaching happens. Like, for example, giving a feedback, delivering instruction, transferring knowledge and skills to students. What else? Following up and all those kinds of things. All things that teacher does in the teacher learning process. They refer to what we call as teaching presence or the presence of the teacher without really being present there. And we have learned that when we use online platforms, for example, when we use our LMS, and there are features that allow students to do online discussion. So students can do online discussion asynchronously without the teacher, just them answering the prompt question or the mother question, and then they responding to the comments of their classmate to each other. Teaching presence is not there, or the teacher is not present there, but because the teacher has provided guidelines on what to do during the discussion, protocols, reminders, deadlines, and all those kinds of things, and even prompts them through interacting with them. Teaching presence is present. Teaching presence is actually seen there. So we are extending teaching presence in online platforms and even in learning resources. Kahoot, for example, if it's self-paced, or maybe your online quizzes if they're self-paced, and and teachers make use of the automated response systems or ARS. How do we show that? When after the students give their answers, the platform, the online quiz actually gives them immediate feedback, explaining whether their answers is correct or their answer is wrong. If it's wrong, why is it wrong? So the platform itself gives already an immediate feedback. So those are examples of ways on how online platforms and even learning resources could actually evoke or invoke the teaching functions that teachers of COLD had put in there, so that even if the students are studying remotely at home, they can actually engage with those content. So remember, in interaction, it's not just teacher-student interaction or even student-students interaction. There is what we call also the student content interaction. Hence, well-designed engaging learning experiences, whether synchronously and asynchronously, can happen with or without the presence of the teacher. Remember, what's the key word? Well-designed engaging learning experiences. Another thing, learners can engage with their classmates and learning resources. One thing we've learned about interaction. However, they should be trained. They should be trained to interact with the content or with their classmates on their own as part of being an independent learner. And when we say we want to have an effective independent learner, we hope that there is a high or acceptable level of agency. What does agency mean? Agency is the ability of the students to make choices for himself, to set goals, work for these goals, and even reorient himself or herself to make sure that he is at the proper way towards achieving the goal. So students need to make decisions, act on these decisions, and make sure that they're very much aware that they're doing this independently. Of course, when we speak about independent learning and agency, it's age appropriate. It's developmental appropriate. So it's not good to compare the senior high school being independent learners and having the same level of agency with a kinder student. It that later on you will also find that when we speak about independent learning, it doesn't mean that kids are on their own. At some point, teachers and even their parents or the adult supervisor at home will have to figure their way in to be part of the learning and teaching process. But I think more importantly, there is this need to make sure that students are trained, that they have been prepared well with the skills, whether it's a human skill or maybe technology or digital skills that they need to make sure that they can engage with their classmates properly. So, for example, the skill of negotiation, the skill of collaboration, or maybe when they look into their learning resources, the skill of being able to see what matters most right now and prioritizing which needs to be studied earlier or maybe urgently. So that's what we mean when we say that students can actually engage with their classmates and the learning experiences. But very importantly, they should also be prepared with the skills needed to make these things happen. The last thing that we have come to learn about interaction, also from the studies made by Education Endowment Fund, is that peer interaction can actually provide motivation. So when we talk about interaction, it's not just students going online with their teachers doing synchronous work, especially because in our case, in the Philippines, internet connection remains a big problem among our teachers and among our students. So what do we do now? Well, we also need to let the students do peer interaction, because peer interaction can actually provide motivation as well as help in improving learning outcomes and sustaining discussions. So remember that when we said that teaching presence doesn't mean the teacher is always present there physically, like asking them to go online together, especially when we could actually develop asynchronous or independent learning work. Well, it's very important also to remember to integrate at some point that there should be peer interaction, that you let your students go to breakout rooms or even create their own video call or meetings so that they can interact with each other. They don't have to always go on video meetings. You can also create activities like asynchronous discussion forums, discussion boards, where they can actually comment on each other's work and you could actually steer them towards discussion. This is very important because at some point, we need to make sure that collaboration happens. Some people would say, but that collaboration is not the same with face-to-face learning. But my bigger question is there any other way for us right now to do collaboration other than to go online, right? So I think it's very important that while we're doing online distance learning and thinking of how we can improve interaction, it's not always good to compare it with face-to-face learning because we don't have any choice right now. So again, peer interaction is very, very important. You can do it synchronously or asynchronously. Now, let's go to another principle, very important principle in online distance learning. It's feedback on ODL. And feedback has been a major, major concern right now in online distance learning. Let's talk about feedback further. Well, one of the things that I need to remind everyone is that feedback is actually the lifeline of online learning or even of learning itself. It's not good, it's not an ideal situation when students are just studying on their own and teacher is not giving them feedback. Feedback coming from the teacher is very, very important. And that's the work of every teacher because it allows the learners to know where they are, where they need to go, and how to reach their learning goals. Feedback is that light on the street that would remind the students, hey, you are on the right path. Or maybe it's like the blood, okay? The blood of the life, or it's called lifeline of learning. It's the blood that is pumped out so that students would know if they're doing well or not. So what did we learn about feedback? Well, number one, learners need guidance. While they can be trained to be effective or reflective of their own learning, they still need teachers to help them improve their work, especially because teachers know what the standards or how it looks like when students reach their standards or their goals or learning goals. Why is this so? Because, in the end, it's very important to remember that learners can can get the lessons immediately, but it's also possible that they don't get the lesson immediately, or that they might be building misconceptions, especially when they're doing or they're studying things alone. So whether the students are doing independent learning, it's very important to put check-ins or checkpoints for them to know if they are doing well. So feedback from teacher doesn't necessarily mean, they're always in conversation with the teacher, because we have a lot of things to do also aside from teaching, a lot of students to consider. Feedback could be in the form of, helping the students um, be more reflective, such as using checklists, or maybe using automated response systems that could give immediate feedback to them after answering maybe a practice quiz or a drill or worksheets. It's also important that we prepare students when they study. Like, for example, creating graphic organizers. How do they check their own learning? Through maybe outlining their work or whatever it is. We push for independent learning, but we also recognize that feedback from teacher actually matters more than ever, especially at this time of remote learning. Another thing that teachers can tap, which studies have shown, is that peer interaction. Remember, we mentioned about peer interaction a while ago. Peer interactions could actually provide motivation as well as help in improving learning outcomes through. These are some techniques of how to integrate peer interaction and feedback. Number one, peer marking, asking the students to help to check the work of their classmates, not check like, the check the summative assessment like what teachers are doing, but actually a form of feedback giving. Exchange papers, look at the work of your classmate, what what areas of what areas do might need improvement, or maybe look at their answers, how can you learn from them, or whatever. This comes in the form of collaboration, cooperation, but more importantly, it's about feedback giving, learning with your classmate. So it's very important to know that there are some strategies. One of the things that I usually is called the sharing of models of good work. When I ask those students who have done well to share their work or to their classmates, um, and they get to share the best things that they see about the work. I also remember that even as early as in kinder, grade 1, grade 2, because I observed my teacher, simple strategies like 1 star or 2 stars and 1 wish. When you let the students give feedback to each other, like 2 stars could mean two things that I love about your work, and 1 wish, or maybe one thing that I would love you to consider when you're improving your work. So we have those kinds of different strategies, and it's very easy for us to integrate. It's just a matter of being mindful. So peer interaction could actually provide motivation and, engage students in ensuring that learning outcomes, or improving learning outcomes. What else do we have about feedback? Well, most importantly, very important to consider that there are learners who might need help or at risk. So these learners who need help or at risk, whether academically or whatever form, benefit from explicit support. So what does it mean? Um, we need to be more mindful. We need to be more intentional on how we can support students. Explicit means making tangible ways of helping them. Concrete, like for example, helping them understand and make checklists or maybe daily plans that they can go back, so that when they study, they have actually concrete support system. This support system do not only have to be checklists or daily plans. It could be support system in the form of, sending an email message to the teacher or calling or video conferencing the teacher to ask for help. You know, another way or another important, well, the most important persons in their life that could help them right now, especially in remote learning, is actually their parents. So parents should be involved, and of course, better communication with them should be sustained. So one thing that we need to ask ourselves is how well have we involved our parents? Do we communicate to them not just the feedback, but even expectation and even the progress of our students right now? It's very important that they are considered deeply right now, because they are the ones staying with their kids at home when they are studying on their own. All right. So those are all for feedback right now. Feedback which reminds us the importance of peer interaction and involving parents, at the same time making explicit support for our students. Now let's go to the third principle in online distance learning. And this principle is called authenticity. So authenticity in online distance learning, what does it mean? When we say authenticity, it refers to authentic assessments. So while other forms of assessments were doubted and deemed even ineffective, authentic assessment took center stage as teachers realized the importance of making students do and apply what they know. So let's break this down into smaller ideas. We know that the paper and pen quizzes that has been transformed to become digital, quizzes, they were doubted and they were deemed ineffective. How? Because students, because they have access to the internet and they are answering things on their own, it's easy for them to cheat their way out of this. Or maybe we don't know how much parent intervention has happened when the students were answering this, especially when they're old. Well, we have some platforms that can do that, but they are very expensive platforms, and we don't. Not all schools have the budget to do that. So what do we do when these traditional forms of assessments do not actually work well in the online learning environment? We're not saying that we stop doing these types of assessment. It's just that we need to realize that they could be ineffective at some point. So teachers and a lot of schools have gone to authentic assessments. Authentic assessments are not new. They have been here with us for a long time. It's just that some schools were very not welcoming of authentic assessments. Why? Because there are a lot of reasons. One of them is that it's difficult to check, it's difficult to design. Some schools did not really focus more on traditional forms of assessments also, because they have their own set of values that they uphold. Like for example, the idea of learning could still be about knowledge acquisition and memorization or whatever. But it's very important that authentic assessments, or the pandemic has made us realize that authentic assessments are maybe the most important assessments right now, because it allows the students to apply what they have learned in solving real life problems. Here's the thing though, not all assessments that we think that are authentic are actually authentic assessments. What do I mean by that? The authenticity of the assessment is not just in the form or the type of it. The authenticity of assessment goes back to its design. Are the students solving real world problems that matter? Is the assessment allowing different paths or pathway towards it being solved? Is it open ended, or is it only one? There's only one answer to it. If there's only one answer to it and there is only one pathway of solving it, then it's not an authentic assessment by itself. Or maybe it's a limited form of authentic assessment. It's very important to understand that when we speak of authentic assessment, the problem being solved is real world. That means it matters. Real world issues means things that are really happening, like climate change, like injustice, poverty, all those kinds of things. But there should be choices. The students should be able to make sense of this messy problem through through applying different sets of skills and knowledge that they have learned. and that the students are given different pathways to choose and on how they could actually apply what they've learned. So that's authentic assessment. Um, However, some teachers have also realized that deciding and implementing authentic assessments, it's very challenging. It's very difficult to design real world problems and put them into in the form of authentic assessment. Um, Checking them or designing rubrics, it's very challenging, especially because teachers are new to this one, or maybe they have not been doing this for a very long time. Checking, implementing, all are very challenging, especially because a lot of teachers right now handle a lot of a big number of students. So it makes it more challenging. On the other hand, students and parents also had to adjust to these new types of assessment, especially when it was the first time of the school or maybe the teachers of making use of the assessment. So it's very important that everyone is prepared. We said that authentic assessment should be messy, that they should be complex, because we are also asking the students to apply complex set of knowledge and skills, and applying them to complex problems. Then it's fair that we should be preparing them not just in the knowledge and skills part, but how actually to make sense of authentic assessments, right? um in relation to authenticity is the principle of integrity. Originally, integrity is not something, it's not a part of the, because in March 2020 I wrote, and Rex Bookstore actually published this for free and distributed it digitally, a primer on online distance learning. The core principles really in online distance learning are interaction, feedback, authenticity, agency, and wayfinding. The discussion on integrity came out along the way. Integrity, which affected the assessments or the reliability or the authenticity of the results of the assessments, especially in online distance learning. Well, what do we learn? What did we learn about integrity? Well, scholastic integrity or integrity in school is not only an academic value. It should not only be an academic value, or even when it becomes a problem, a concern for a lot of us, it should be a primary virtue that is integrated in the character development and formation of every learner. Why is it a character development concern? You know, I go back to this question that I usually ask. What will you do if no one is looking at you? This is not anymore just, an academic concern. It's a character, human development concern. It's a spiritual concern also. It should be a value that has been taught to our student for the longest time. We talk about Catholic formation, and of course we teach about honesty. We teach about integrity. But why are our students, why do we keep on hearing about concerns about integrity? Is it us how do you call that? Is it us not trusting our students to be honest on their own? Are we afraid? Or maybe our students did not really mind what we have been teaching. Regardless of that, there are two things that we need to answer. Number one, do we not trust our students to apply what they've learned about honesty or integrity? Do we not trust their maturity? Or are we just being paranoid, or maybe uh, being two steps ahead of our students and already asking this question? But here's the thing. Integrity, the value of honesty and integrity is not just taught. If we just taught integrity and honesty when we went to remote learning, then I don't think we have been very much mindful of our curriculum, of our formation, of our character formation program of our students. This concern of integrity and honesty is not developed overnight, or the value of it. It is something that should have started when they were young. I'm not saying that we didn't do this. Maybe the bigger question is, how did we teach, or how did we help the students develop this value or virtue in them? Maybe we did not give them the opportunity in the classroom. Maybe it was just a lesson in CLE or in values education. The pandemic right now, education in the pandemic is the ultimate test for our students to apply what they've learned. If they fail, and if they fail in showing integrity and honesty, what do we do in this situation? What do you do as a teacher if your students have not been very honest? While I know that there are protocols, academic discipline protocols, we need to go beyond this and ask ourselves, where are we failing in terms of character formation? A student cheating because he is on his own, how does it affect the student? What programs do we have to help them realize that this principle of integrity, that this virtue of integrity, it's something that they need to learn because it's a skill, it's a virtue that goes beyond school. That when they go out of school, when they graduate from our school, it's something that would help them become better members of the community, better members of their workforce. So there. So, always ask your students. I always ask my students, what will you do or what would you do if no one is looking at you? All right. So those are the core principles that we have talked about. We talk about interaction and what we've discovered about peer interaction and letting the students be independent learners. We talk about feedback, how feedback is the lifeline of online learning, and teachers need to give feedback and find creative ways to deliver feedback despite not being with the students. We talk about authenticity and how the struggle in assessment, summative assessment, has has been rethought or maybe reflected on as we move towards more authentic assessment. And together with the question on authenticity is the question of integrity, which we say that this is not just an academic concern anymore, but it is a character development or formation concern also. However, there's one more study, research finding that I want to share to you. When we do online distance learning, the main concern really is called equity. The accelerated adoption of education technology, especially because we're doing online distance learning, has also contributed to in the bigger inequity problem in our current status right now. Why? Because those who have access are the one benefiting. Those who do not have access or maybe had problems or have problems with access, they're usually the one that are most affected. And when they are most affected, it becomes a barrier to successful remote learning. So it's very important that we look at access, not just access, even the preparedness of the students and teachers in terms of ICT skills. Because if we don't look into these things, then we might be creating bigger gaps in our community, especially when we're doing online distance learning. So, how do I end our discussion with you today? Very important. We have seen the Department of Education testing face-to-face learning. We will not be going to face-to-face learning full time. There will be a slow transition, which means that there should be that we will be moving from online distance learning to some type of hybrid learning. In hybrid learning, online learning platforms will still be used despite the students being face-to-face in a limited time. So the bigger question right now is when we move from ODL to hybrid learning or high flex learning or whatever term we use about it, what can we bring when we slowly transition? What new learnings have we discovered in ODL that we can bring when we move forward? What mistakes have we committed and can we still improve on as we go from ODL to hybrid learning? All of these things, the success, the mistakes, the failures, all of these things will help us be better as we again transition to another phase of learning in the pandemic. So I hope that you think about those questions that I've left you. What have you learned? What are your mistakes? How can you improve them? And what could you bring as you move forward from ODL to hybrid or high flex learning. And with that, I end my session on core principles of online distance learning: interaction, feedback, authenticity, and integrity. I will see you in our open forum as we address more of your questions, your comments, and of course, your wonderful insights into our discussion. Thank you and have a great day.
And now we're back. We welcome you once again, our dear speakers, for the question and answer portion. Let me see the chat box. This is not actually a question. From Alicia Javier, thank you so much, Dr. Ocampo, for a very systematic research-based presentation, a big help for us. From Frederick Soto Perez, thank you, Teacher Dina, for taking literacy learning at the center. And from Grace Gregorio, thank you, Dr. Dina Ocampo, for your substantial and excellent presentation. From Alicia Javier, this is for Jim. A very relevant and informative session. And from Tessie Babaran, one of the best sessions, Jim. And from Adrian Ciano, good afternoon, Sir Toscano. Watching your inputs from Palo Leyte. So you see, we understand that we don't only have participants coming from the Philippines. We also have participants from the Middle East, from Italy, from Greece, from the United Nations of America. We have participants from all over the world, actually. See how CEAP has grown, okay? Greetings coming from Estrella Karin of Libagon Academy Foundation, Libagon Leyte. Hashtag CEAP-CARES. Oh, watching from St. Francis Xavier Academy of Kapatagan Incorporated, Kapatagan, Lanao del Norte. And from Linar Briones, a blessed afternoon greetings to all from St. Ezekiel Moreno High School, Liminangkong, Palawan. Imagine, from Palawan. And from Marie Cristos, greetings of peace and love from Divine Word College of Benguet. Stars, 75 stars from Paul Honwil Gablines. Okay. There seems to be no questions coming in. That only means that everything that our two speakers have shared with us are very clear. No wonder then that the comments was for a very organized presentation. One of the best, okay, presentation. Let's see if there are other questions or comments. Dear participants, fellow educators, this is your only chance for the day 4 of the Congress to ask your questions. Please type them in the chat box. Dr. Ocampo and Jim, I think that all the viewers are so happy, so satisfied with what you've shared with them. To Sir Toscano, how can we assess reliability on the response of student assessment in giving feedback in this ODL? Can we ask Jim to answer that?
Thank you, sister. Hi, Teacher Dina. Hi, everyone. I'm very tempted to say maybe Teacher Dina is more an expert in terms of assessment because I've always read her work. But this is a very interesting question because I can comment on this in terms of basically because in online distance learning, you have to trust the students. It's not helpful to think that they are always on the brink of doing something that we don't want, like cheating or letting other people answer their work. I think that's part of distance learning. Recognizing the fact that your students will have to answer all their assessments on their own. Now, because we are not comfortable of the environment, we always ask the question, how can we assess reliability? Well, it's very difficult now. You cannot put a camera inside their rooms or maybe, police them. But for me, I think it's very important that we look at the design. I think more important than assessing the reliability is we look at the design of our assessments, because if the assessments are easy to be Googled, the answers are Googleable, it will make it, tempting for them to search for the answer. That's why I advocate for application of skills. But then some, and even authentic assessment, but then some people would even say, push further the conversation and say, what if they're not the one doing it? How do we know? My question is, how did you know that they're not the one doing it? So I mean, it's an chicken egg question for me. It's just a matter of trusting them. But like what I've said a while ago, in terms of integrity, we need to further, you know, we need to have more effort into building integrity and honesty in our students, because right now we can just do as much. I'm not quite sure if that satisfies the question in terms of reliability of the response of the students. But yeah, I think number one, go to the design of your assessment. Second, consider always, trust your student, trust your parents, and make them remember that when they cheat or do other things that we don't want, we're not the one losing the chance of learning. They're the one losing, the chance of learning. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you very much, Jim. In the past, I heard someone saying that the only way to make our learners trustworthy is to trust them. Trust them. Okay? I think this is for Dr. Ocampo. How do we balance health protocols and educational decisions?
Hello to everyone, Sir Feli, Jim, magandang hapon. That's a good question, but I think the balance really is in reducing the size of the location that is being thought about. So, for example, there should be decisions that are really community level decisions. And for example, in a certain school, usually schools have a catchment area that students come from particular communities. So the decisions on health issues, for example, if a certain street has to go on lockdown or has to go on quarantine, then what is needed is for the school to be informed about those things, those decisions, and for teachers to be able to prepare what would have been face-to-face lessons, but to prepare the equivalent that can be delivered through distance learning. I think that this is the only way to really address what will be happening. I think that we are in for the long haul. Sorfeli, this pandemic is not going to end as quickly as we all wish. It will surge. It will go down. The numbers will change very so often. So the response to this has to be to remove from our minds a very national or large population kind of decision making, but really to look at it at community level and school level. So that's how I think we could balance the decisions. But also to be always prepared to shift from blended to face to distance. I think that readiness has to be in place already. And we have to, though there's a new normal we are all looking forward to. The new normal we have now is different from that which we envision. So the now is what we have to address, because children need us now to be adaptable and to be flexible. Thank you,
Thank
sister.
you very much, Dr.
Thank you for the
Ocampo.
question.
Yeah, you're right. The virus is alive, and so it's here to stay with us. And we just have to learn how to live with it.
Yes.
So as you were saying, we need to be flexible. We need to be resilient.
Mhm.
Thank you very much. Here is another question. Sir Jim, what different preparations can you suggest for hybrid learning?
Very interesting question, and I would love to connect it with what Teacher Dina's mentioned. I love when she said about making decisions on a community level. Well, for a lot of us with school community levels, because when we talk about hybrid learning, we're talking about slowly transitioning back to face-to-face learning. We will not be able to go back full time, a full capacity face-to-face learning, because like what Sister Feli, Teacher Dina, and everyone has been telling us, the virus is here with us. I mean, we need to learn how to live with it. So there might be surges, and then lockdowns may happen, especially because the alert levels that we have right now is very much community based, or maybe the smaller parts of a barangay could be locked down, or or shut down. So when we talk about preparations for hybrid learning, I think that's why I love the presentation of the teacher Dina a while ago. That's a very systematic way of preparing a school or a community towards transitioning to another modality. Like, you don't just look at what, because the temptation, like what happened during the ODL, was to look for the technology to buy. I mean, I do understand, because a lot of us, especially for private schools, we need to look at our budget and all those kinds of things. But that should not be the first thing that you need to consider. There are a lot. Number one, look at the context of your students. Sinabi ni Teacher Dina kanina, and I've always heard her speaking about this. Understand the context of your students, because whatever decision, whatever kind of modality you will be making is for them, and that should answer the needs that they have. So look at their context. Are they prepared to go back to hybrid learning? A while ago, Teacher Dina mentioned about the importance of health literacy, safety protocol, because just because hybrid learning is there, it's not just you open open the gates of the school, and then 10-20% of the students population are there. It's not like that. You still need to control the movement so that it's easier for you to detect where the I don't know, infection might be coming from, is if there's an infection. So health protocol should be in place, safety and health protocol. What else? Do not forget the teachers, because in ODL, napasabak ang mga teachers, medyo nahirapan ang mga teachers, nakalimutan din natin. In hybrid, that's double the work, because most hybrid learning or blended learning setup involves teachers working with online and on-site students. So don't forget capacity building of teachers, preparing the students and even the parents. Again, we need to always work with the parents, especially with this transition. So there's a lot of things to look into. Online platforms, where maybe we're ahead of that because of online distance learning. The online component of hybrid learning seems to be a lot easier for us because we're coming from ODL. However, I would always suggest that whatever decision you make in preparation for the structure, you should be able to always, easily transition back to remote learning, especially because there will always be, or there might be, some surges. That's what happened in the US and other countries. They've been doing hybrid learning way ahead of us. There are a lot of negative things coming out. There are a lot of positive things coming out, but it's always flexibility. Remember, when we speak about hybrid or high flex, it's about flexibility. Transitioning from one mode to another, or maybe having two modes of learning at the same time. So there, I think holistic, systemic, look at every aspect so that you'll be able to prepare your school for hybrid learning.
Thank you very much, Sir Jim. I like what the two of you are saying. Understand the context of your students. That is a good proof that we are really making our learners the center and the reason for all that we do. Um, may we ask our speakers for any final message that they would want to share with our viewers, our participants today? Can we ask Dr. Ocampo first?
Okay, Sister Feli. I agree with everything that Jim said, that it will have to be community-based. And in terms of literacy, we have to remember, dear teachers and dear school heads, that when we talk about literacy, we don't only talk about skills or being able to read. We are also talking about loving it and enjoying it. And sometimes we miss that aspect of literacy development, and we actually focus too much on skill development. So if we were to be able to use ODL or hybrid learning, even face to face, if there is a chance for us to develop a love for reading, writing, and all aspects of literacy, the better. I think that now that there is so much stress in our learning situations at home and and I don't mean just children's homes, I mean teachers' homes also, because it's really very stressful to teach and work in the same place. I know because I do it every class. So I think that it's very important for us to inject joy in our lessons, hope that we are going to come out of this and we're going to conquer the difficulties that have come and challenged us in the last 2 years. I think that, as I said in the one of my slides, in the phases of recovery, always when we think about recovery, we're thinking of hope. And as teachers, we must always hope for our learners. So thank you, sister. Thank you very much for this. All the best to CEAP.
Thank you, Dr. Ocampo. May we listen to the last message of Jim?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that a lot of people would come to me and then ask for help in terms of technology, and they and they would always, end up not learning about technology, especially at this time, because we can just do as much with technology in learning. But I think one thing that we have learned so much about education in the pandemic is that it is very difficult to ask the students to learn the things that we are asking them to learn, especially when they don't feel safe, when they don't feel supported, or if they're missing things. Um, that should be education even before the pandemic. We should have already recognized that education is not just about academic achievements or academic goals. The pandemic has reminded us to be more holistic, to know the whole person, the whole child, and to bring back our love, like what the teacher Dina said a while ago. It's not necessarily just reading, literacy or learning skills, but to actually find joy in everything that we do. Appreciation of life, maybe a stronger appreciation of life, stronger appreciation of character formation. A lot of the challenges in online distance learning always go back to character formation. Why is my son or daughter not able to learn on her own? Why is there a cheating problem in online distance learning? Why is it so easy for my daughter or son to give up, or things like that? I think what we have learned right now is to make sure that character development is on the same level with academic achievement, because we need to look, and there are other aspects of learning, by the way, holistic learning, but I think that's one thing that I would love to leave everyone. Don't forget about the other things that every learner should be developing right now. So thank you, Sayap. Also thank you, teacher Feli, sister Feli.
Thank you, Jim. Our speakers this afternoon have shared with us many points to ponder, and as members of CEAP, we are now driven to all the more commit ourselves to making learners the prime consideration in all that we do in our schools. We commit to making learner development our priority in the school. And with what our speakers today have shared with us, we come to realize that it is our duty, our responsibility, our commitment and our mission as educators to build a culture of excellence in our school by way of taking the lead role in literacy building and practice of the core principles of online distance learning: interaction, feedback, authenticity, and integrity. So we thank our two speakers. We're so grateful for their presence, for generosity of heart, for sharing with us. By the way, you will find the link in the caption of this video. You may also evaluate the sessions from the virtual Congress Hall. At the program tab of the virtual hall, you can click the button that says Evaluate Session. Tomorrow, day 5, we will start at 8 o'clock in the morning, not 8:30. Again, we start tomorrow, day 5, at 8 o'clock in the morning, not 8:30. Tomorrow is another exciting day. Tomorrow is the launching of the PCSS in the higher education. Wow! That will make the work complete. So now we have the standards for Catholic schools from the basic ed to the tertiary level to the graduate school. Congratulations, CEAP. So on behalf of the CEAP President, Sister Maria Marisa Arviri, RBM, and Mr. Jose Alan I. Arellano, and the CEAP National Secretariat, this is Sister Felicitas Bernardo, SPC, saying thank you and good afternoon, good evening to everyone.
Sa ikaw at ako, natuto sa prinsipyong punyo at serbisyong totoo. Kahalintulad ni Kristo, isang puwarang Katoliko. Pagkakaisa sa tulong at gawa, masasalamat alaala, pagpapako, ang misyon sa mundo, magagawa sa biyaya ni Kristo. Ang kabataan, may hamon at alay sa ating bayan, maging lingkod at tulad ng pagbabago sa misyon sa mundo. Virgen Maria, ang gabay at ang modelo. Sa mundong may bagong anyo, isang bansang may bagong sigla. Dahil sa ikaw at ako, natuto sa prinsipyong komunyo at serbisyong totoo. Kahalintulad ni Kristo, isang puwarang Katoliko. Bago, may bagong anyo. Bago, may bagong sigla. Komunyo, servisyo, totoo.
Recent world-changing disruptions have driven schools and education stakeholders to find ways to elevate the teaching and learning experience. To survive and thrive in these challenging times, educators need to step up with the right tools and acquire the mindset of resilience. Bring your school to the next level with Genyo e-learning. As the leading educational resource provider in the Philippines, DIWA Learning Systems Incorporated has been helping schools create boundless teaching and learning environments through printed K-12 textbooks and magazines, and digital resources like Genyo e-learning, the country's pioneer learning management system. Genyo e-learning is a fully integrated e-learning platform that takes teaching and learning to the next level. With rich curriculum-based content, a responsive support system, and a dynamic implementation program. Through Genyo e-learning, teachers and students can access ready-made resources for lectures, discussions, and self-paced learning experiences. And they can take advantage of the different system tools tailored to meet their ever-changing needs and demands. Schools need to be creative in reimagining their teaching and learning environment to ensure education continuity. Whether for distance learning or face-to-face classes, Genyo e-learning enables teachers to continue engaging with their students, whatever the circumstance. It allows teachers to design new and authentic learning opportunities that bring out students' creativity and recreate physical learning experiences through unique activities such as virtual field trips and virtual science fairs, among others. With Genyo e-learning, schools can continue to provide quality education anytime, anywhere. For any school, collaboration among teachers, students, parents, and education partners is key to the success of learning continuity. Genyo e-learning creates programs that build communities, whether for face-to-face or online learning environments. From providing avenues for school leaders to learn together and share their own experiences, to facilitating webinars for parents and students, and instilling responsible behavior in a digital space. Genyo e-learning assures schools that they are supported so they can thrive under any circumstance. Since 2006, Genyo e-learning has been empowering schools to manage technological disruptions in education by providing training programs, customizable solutions, and solid after-sales support. From the introduction of blended learning for 21st century learners to addressing the issue of equity by providing a premise-based platform to those with limited internet connectivity. Genyo e-learning works with schools to assess online learning readiness and implementation so that they can innovate and adapt more quickly to change. Whether it's transitioning to a purely online distance learning delivery mode or shifting to hybrid learning upon the resumption of face-to-face classes. Our mission at Genyo e-learning is to make it possible for schools to work with a credible partner, creatively turn obstacles into triumphs, provide opportunities for collaboration, and embrace change courageously. This is next level education. Together, let's prepare our youth to be the leaders of the future. Start your next level education journey today with Genyo e-learning.
It's time for us with this to keep on sharing, putting things that we're doing, the best practices, not necessarily your your syllabus, but rather the actions that you take, because this is going to be for the benefit of young people.
Parents and teachers need to collab. It's not about forcing the environment of the classroom to the home. It's really about learning together.
People are all saying it's a connectivity issue. No, it is also a mindset issue. From just in the classroom, it will change the way you grade your students. It will change the way you give assignments. It will change the way you restructure your syllabus.
We have to make sure that we do not stick only to the curriculum that we have. We have to reinvent our classes. We need to teach our students on how to solve problems and make sure that they collaborate as teams. All they need to do is to make sure that technology is maximized.
Mahilig tayo magkwento. We are a very literary culture. I-leverage natin yung ating pagiging makwento sa ating pagturo.
So as schools around the world respond to COVID-19, the need for remote learning tools has never been more urgent. And we are here to help teachers set up their digital classroom.
Learning nowadays, it's very different from what we are all used to. And engaging your students like every day via Google Meets can be challenging. So you need to think about like the different situations your students are in.
If the device will be the gateway to learning for our students, they must use a device that they actually like, because it makes learning something that they love to engage in rather than a chore.
It is our job, all of us in the education space, to put that confidence sa parents and sa mga estudyante that, you know what, the experience of learning something new could still happen even if walang teacher sa harap nila in a classroom setting.
The key is to keep adding additional activities, technologies, tools that will try to get you back to replicate that face-to-face environment that you were in. Because if you don't do that, the students can't learn.
In educational technology, we're looking at technology that you can already use. So basically, we're looking at features of Google Classroom that are usable for you as a teacher.
Sa panahon ngayon, when everybody has a voice on social media, isn't it important that our students learn how to really think critically so that they are able to decipher between fact and opinion. Foundations kasi tayo eh.
We should, give voice to learners regarding their own, learning and teaching. We need to provide, clear instructions. We need to provide, the basic technological tools available.
Design is actually everywhere. Hindi lang siya kung gaano kaganda yung presentation. Iniisip rin natin sa design, paano ba siya gagamitin ng estudyante, di ba? Kapag alam na natin kung ano yung function niya o para saan yung dinidesign natin, didesign natin kung paano siya mag-work.
When I contact somebody, an administrator, or whenever I need something from the unit heads, I always start with, kumusta na kayo dyan? How are you doing? You have to start the conversation with, how are you? No? Dun yun mag-uumpisa eh. And they will start sharing what are their difficulties.
It is every parent's dream to raise children in a world where knowledge is just within their grasp. From this simple objective of providing their children with the best quality education possible, a greater purpose was born. And from this vision comes the Inteligente Publishing. The Inteligente Publishing is a Filipino-owned enterprise committed to empowering the youth. A visionary organization, we maintain a culture of excellence. We are always innovating, and we are dedicated to lifelong learning. Committed to provide quality education, the Inteligente family began making itself known to its peers in the local publishing industry. Expanding our partnerships with different educational institutions. The Inteligente Publishing is an established school partner in education and has published new titles every year since 2015. Preschool, Grade school. Junior high school. Senior high school. And tested training modules. Envisioning a wider reach for its learning materials. The Intelligente Publishing continues to prove its adaptability with the changing times through the MELC modules. As it continues to innovate and adapt to the future standard of learning, the Intelligente Publishing recently launched Intellectual. It is designed to ease the transition of schools to more modern educational technology. Intellectual is Intelligente's premier education portal for all of your school's e-learning needs. Its intuitive features allow users to comfortably understand and adapt the technology. The Intelligente Publishing continues to expand and grow, not only as an organization, but as a provider of quality learning materials and teacher training designed for distance education. The Intelligente Publishing will continue to soar higher and achieve greater heights for the pursuit of academic excellence and quality education, with a strong determination in creating and molding our future leaders. Let us be Intelligente together.
With C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S Publishing Incorporated, we assure you as our partners to be there throughout the journey. We are with you in every step of the way. Technology is continuously evolving, and C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S is riding with it. From print to digital, C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S got you covered with the products that we offer. Spearheading C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S products are the C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S, an e-learning portal for teachers only, and the Leveraging Education, Augmenting the Future, or LEAF, for student-teacher access. For teachers, administrators, and school owners, we have the C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S. It is perfect for you in maneuvering fast-paced demands of the education field as we collaborate in creating a balanced amalgam of theories, pedagogies, and practices inside and outside of the realm of the learning environments. Reimagine, reinforce, recognize, to make quality education through a variety of lectures, trainings, and webinars in aid of instruction, classroom management, and institution management. These offerings are perfect responses. In connection to C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S, to provide service beyond sales, C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S also has the C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S for its partner mission schools in providing them with capacity building focused branding or rebranding the institution inside and out. It also practices reimagining various school scenarios and responses to the needs of the time, reinforcing school climate and culture through different webinars conducted among institution partners and in recognizing the value of each stakeholder in the success of value-laden instruction delivery. Another product of C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S is the C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S Assist. This offering features a 24/7 hotline for technical assistance in the use and maintenance of the C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S and LEAF. Almost everyone in the academe can benefit from this, from the teachers, admins, and school owners to the students and parents. C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S Assists aims to provide an assistance response team to address immediate technical concerns while ensuring the users the full utilization of the C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S and LEAF. It also offers visits with partners to address offline concerns when needed. We ensure quality service delivered through this hotline assistance to our partners, always. And lastly, C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S Thinks. Together with the partners, we provide them with external consultations for present and future research agenda, accreditation certification, and Imaging One. C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S thinks that with a client in full swing, it is redirecting the winds within their institutions. C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S thinks is for teachers, administrators, school owners, students, parents, and even extended service communities and collaborative partner agencies. Through innovative designs, proactive responses, and reconfigured goals, established institutions are on the verge of the fourth going to the fifth industrial revolution. Strong definitive vision is what's needed in remaining relevant and competent in this world. And this is what C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S is all about.
Morning!
Sa umpisa lang yan.
Pasensya na po, ma'am. Nakakahiya po.
Muna. Ganyan din ako noon.
Okay, Ramon, your turn to answer.
Ang nanay ko naman, teacher. Ang tingin ko sa kanya noon, siya yung pinakamatalinong tao sa buong mundo.
Ay, ma'am, ganyan na ganyan po ang tingin ko sa inyo.
Pero tama yung ginagawa mo. Always ask help from your colleagues and coordinators. And of course, by using the Teacher's Wraparound Edition, mas mapapadali ang pagtuturo.
Sana magiging kasing kalmado nyo rin po ako.
Without a doubt. With the flurry of technologies, we must keep guiding our teachers to focus more on how these tools can deepen learning, not just on how to use them. Learning first, technology second.
This is frustrating. Pero ang dami na nating ginawa for our students, ha? How else kaya can we best improve learning?
Kalma lang. Let's just do our best making sure that our students master their needed skills and competencies. Hindi tayo nag-iisa. We have help.
Tama po kayo. Buti we have C.O.N.G.R.E.S.S assessment tools to help us further evaluate the quality of learning.
And because the coronavirus threat still lingers, distance learning will be implemented for
The mga infections.
the school year 2020 to 2021.
Open mo muna yung file.
Ay, salamat talaga, Rachel. Buti na lang nandyan ka.
No, ma'am. Ako nga yung dapat magpasalamat sa inyo.
Pero alam mo, ang dapat talagang pasalamatan, Alagang Phoenix. Sa kanilang professional development program ko nakuha yung mga naituro ko sa'yo.
Buti na lang tong Aral Links, ma'am, no? Hindi lang siya LMS. Holistic EdTech solution talaga siya.
Quarantine has now been
Siya talaga nagbabantay sa kapatid niya, lalo na pag alam niyang busy ako.
Siyempre, mana sa ninang.
Di na ako kontra.
Taon-taon, tuwing dumarating ang pasukan, ang palaging tanong ng nakararami ay, handa ba tayo?
Kakulangan ng silid-aralan sa ilang eskwelahan sinalubong ng mga estudyante sa unang araw ng pasukan.
Sapat ba ang ating mga pangangailangan para mas makapagbahagi ng kaalaman sa bawat kabataan? Ngunit taon-taon din, sa kabila man ng mga hamon na dumarating, sama-sama natin itong tinutugunan sa abot ng ating kakayanan. Hanggang sa
hati ang opinyon ng nakararami sa pagpapatupad ng distance learning dahil sa mga problema gaya ng mabagal na internet connection at kakulangan ng gadget na maaaring gamitin sa pag-aaral.
Naging usap-usapan yung pag-delay muna ng pasukan hanggang sa susunod na taon kung kailan mas handa ang mga bata, mga magulang, teacher at mga paaralan. Marami man ang tutol sa pagbabalik eskwela, may mga solusyon at paraan na maaari nating gamitin para ituloy ang pagpapalawak ng kaalaman. Sa panahong nailagay sa panganib ang pagpapakalat ng karunungan sa mga kabataan, atin pa ding ginagampanan ang ating pangako para patuloy na itaas ang antas ng ating edukasyon sa panahon man ng pandemya. Ika nga, learning should never stop. Anumang pagsubok, kaya nating lagpasan basta sama-sama.
Nagtatanong, natutuwa, lumalawak ng mundo niya. Masdan mo siya, namamangha, marami nang nagagawa.
Ramdam ko kung gaano kalaki ang effort ng mga guro para lang maibahagi ang nalalaman nila sa mga bata. Doble ang hirap nila sa paghahanda.
Mas nakikita ko ngayon yung paikisa ng mga magulang, yung involvement nila, para maitawid namin ang kaalaman para sa mga bata. Mas tumibay ang partnership namin to make home study work.
Malaking bagay sa akin itong barangay handbook. Mas lalo kong naiintindihan ang pangangailangan ng aking mga nasasakupan. Lalo na ngayon nasa gitna tayo ng isang malawakang krisis. Nakakatulong din ito sa kung paano namin minamanage ang peace and order sa bawat lugar ng aming barangay. Sinisiguro din namin na mabahagi sa bawat barangay tanod at mga volunteer health workers ang aming mga natutunan sa pamamagitan ng mga seminars at counseling.
Since sa ibang bansa nagtatrabaho si Mama at Papa, sinisigurado ko na nasusubaybayan ko ang kapatid ko sa kanyang online classes. Ginagawan ko ng paraan para maturuan siya sa kanyang mga lessons at mga assignment. Mahirap sa umpisa, but I need to step up para sa kinabukasan niya.
Noong panahong nangyari ang pandemya, nahinto ang mga negosyo, nagsipakulong ang mga tao, tumigil ang ating mundo. Kaalaman lamang ang muling magpapabalik nito. Karunungan para muling maibalik ang buhay ng tao.
Sa aming ika-70 taon, handog namin ay pasasalamat sa lahat ng mga naging kasapi sa misyong maging gabay ng bawat batang Pilipino tungo sa kanilang mga mithiin. Mula sa bawat individual na bahagi ng CEAP na patuloy tumutugon sa kanilang tungkulin sa kabila ng pandemya, hanggang sa inyong mga tagapagtaguyod ng edukasyon na patuloy na pagsuporta. Tayong lahat sama-sama.
Hawak kamay, ang pag-asa, gagabayan kita dahil para sa bata, aking pagsisikap. Para sa bata, aking hangad at pag-asa. Pangarap ko'y kung anong pangarap niya. Buong puso ko, buong puso ko, buong puso ko. Para sa bawat bata. Para sa bata, para sa bata.
We are in the middle of an educational transformation. The pandemic has been a turning point for the country's educational systems, drastically changing teaching and learning as we know it. Technology integration is no longer only an extra option, but a necessary direction. The primary concern of schools and educational stakeholders right now is how to design classroom experiences so that we can prepare our students for the realities we face today. As a preferred e-learning provider in the country, TechFactors is at the forefront in leveraging technology to make classroom experiences fun, fruitful, and meaningful. In line with our philosophy of making learning a great experience, we are committed in supporting our educators in this transition to the new age of education. So how? How can we design classroom experiences to prepare students for lifelong learning? Our answer rests in three main driving pillars. We need learning that is contextualized, innovative, and collaborative. How do we contextualize learning? With TechFactors, lessons involve real-life problems and stories that students can easily relate to. This builds the foundation needed to understand concepts and compounds onto the learner's previous knowledge. Now that we designed lessons to be relevant to students, how do we maximize their natural curiosity and tendency to explore? To unleash their potential, we need tools that are innovative. With our latest innovations, TechFactors courseware integrate virtual laboratories, educational games, and the applications in a virtual environment through its interactives. To strengthen understanding using the senses, we have manipulatives in mathematics as well as kits and simulators for robotics. Using the most recent breakthroughs in technology, we at TechFactors provide our very own learning management system, TechTeach LMS. All TechFactors courseware can be accessed via TechTeach LMS, and it provides a seamless classroom experience, allowing smooth navigation through an improved interface. Making these tools available and accessible enhances the experience of not only the digital native learners, but also of the teachers. Now that various innovative learning tools are at the disposal of our students, how do we encourage them to stay motivated? All of us have the instinctive need for connection, to share our ideas, and to feel connected to the world around us. Great learning experiences are shaped by a good learning environment characterized by collaboration and communication. With this, learners develop awareness and actively engage in society. TechFactors courseware are designed not only to adhere to the MELC, but also to international standards in line with the steadily integrating global landscape. 21st century skills such as critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication are emphasized. With the right guidance and opportunities, students can reach out to others as they brave the world together. In this critical turning point, we at TechFactors are looking forward to a bright future together with you, our partners in education. Join us as we make learning a great experience.
The new now is here. You need an out-of-the-box user-friendly platform that will help you transition smoothly to the new normal. You need vSmart School. vSmart School is a one-stop teaching and learning online platform perfect for hybrid learning. This two-in-one system caters to your distance learning and classroom management needs. vSmart School supports self-paced, teacher-paced, asynchronous and synchronous formal education online. In vSmart School, students will attend daily online classes and access Vibal's DepEd-aligned digital curriculum from preschool to senior high school. Need content for college? We have them too. With the guidance of parents and teachers, students will follow DepEd's recommended day-to-day lesson calendar for an entire school year. Teachers using vSmart School can also create lessons, schedule classes, and monitor their students' progress. Most importantly, teachers can also live stream or securely conduct online classes through the platform's webinar feature. Looking for a perfect classroom management partner? vSmart School has got you covered as it boasts of an out-of-the-box learning management platform. It provides a library of gamified and interactive materials, a lesson plan repository mapped to the curriculum, assessment tools, and ebooks that feature augmented reality technology. This LMS component of vSmart School is integrated with a learning record system. This means that through the system, teachers and students can track their teaching and learning journey. Not just that, teachers can also monitor students' grades through an electronic grading sheet called Gradebook. And if you need to deploy tests online, you can do so with Test Guru, where you can enjoy thousands of free test questions ready for deployment through the Vibal Test Bank. See? All your distance learning needs are here in vSmart School. Packed with curriculum-aligned content, learners' progress reporting, and ebooks that are AR ready, vSmart School goes beyond the traditional classroom experience. The good news is, you can also enjoy the vSmart School experience without the internet connection through its mobile app. Downloadable from Google Play Store and Apple App Store. So what are you waiting for? Start your virtual classroom with vSmart School.
Introducing MC EduHub, a digital learning portal made for students and teachers where remote or hybrid learning does not have to feel anything less. MC EduHub is designed for frontal teaching and self-directed learning, which is flexible and easy to implement. MC EduHub comes with thousands of highly interactive digital features and a range of pedagogically proven content in English, maths, science, mother tongue, and coding, suitable for preschool to grade 11 that can be accessible online and offline. MC EduHub is a digital learning portal that allows interaction between teacher and student at anywhere and anytime. It also allows teachers to conduct personalized lesson plans and assess students' performance and their learning abilities using data. Start your digital learning journey with MC EduHub today.